Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Sienna'S unborn child begins to surface, and no one, absolutely no one, is prepared for the name that keeps circling back like a ghost that refuses to rest, because just when everyone thought the mystery had narrowed, when fingers were already pointing and alliances quietly shifting behind closed doors, the revelation hits with a single devastating implication. Noah Newman's name is suddenly dragged into the storm, and the mere possibility sends shockwaves through the Newman family and beyond. As Sienna, pale and shaken but fiercely guarded, struggles to hold herself together while the walls close in, her every glance scrutinized, every word dissected, every silence screaming louder than a confession, and the timing could not be worse, because Noah, trying to rebuild his life, reclaim his footing after past heartbreaks, and finally step out from under the towering shadow of his family legacy, finds himself yanked back into a nightmare he never saw coming, blindsided by rumors that threaten to undo everything he's fought for. And as the speculation grows, the city divides into camps, some convinced it has to be him, others refusing to believe Noah could ever betray his values or entangle himself in something so messy. Yet the circumstantial clues pile up relentlessly, from a half-remembered night Sienna refuses to fully explain, to security footage timestamps that don't quite add up, to the way Noah freezes, just for a fraction of a second, when the question is finally asked outright, and that hesitation, however small, becomes gasoline on a raging fire, because in Genoa City, hesitation is never innocent, and Victor Newman, sensing danger to his family name, moves swiftly and ruthlessly, demanding answers, commissioning discreet investigations, and making it clear that if Noah is being framed, the responsible party will regret ever setting foot in his orbit. But if Noah is guilty, if there is even a sliver of truth to the rumors, then Victor's disappointment may prove far more terrifying than his anger. While Nikki is torn apart, caught between maternal instinct and the gnawing fear that history might be repeating itself, that her son could be paying the price for one reckless moment, and Sharon, drawn back into Noah's life by concern and old bonds that never truly fade, becomes his fiercest defender, insisting that something about Sienna's story doesn't ring true, that the puzzle pieces are being arranged by someone with an agenda, yet even she cannot ignore the weight of doubt creeping into her own heart, especially when Sienna breaks down in private, confessing to Sharon that she never meant for things to spiral this far, that the truth is more complicated, more dangerous than anyone realizes, but stopping short of naming the father. A calculated silence that only deepens suspicion and fuels tabloids, gossip blogs, and whispered conversations at Crimson Lights, where patrons trade theories like currency, each one darker than the last. And as Noah faces public scrutiny, his professional life begins to crumble, deals fall through, friends distance themselves, and the stigma alone threatens to mark him forever, guilty or not. While hidden in the shadows, another man watches nervously, his relief at Noah's predicament barely masking his terror that the truth might still come out, because this is not just about paternity. It's about secrets layered upon secrets, about betrayal that stretches back months, possibly years. And as the pressure mounts, cracks begin to show, with Sienna's health faltering under stress, forcing a hospital visit that becomes a powder keg when medical staff accidentally reveal details about the conception timeline that contradict the prevailing narrative, sending Victor's investigators back to the drawing board and prompting a tense confrontation in a sterile hospital corridor where Noah, raw and exhausted, demands Sienna look him in the eye and tell him if he's the father. And for a heartbeat, time seems to stop, the answer hanging in the air like a blade, before Sienna whispers that she can't, not yet, because naming the wrong man could destroy more than just reputations. It could cost lives, a chilling statement that reframes everything and suggests a far more sinister plot at work, one involving blackmail, power plays, and a pregnancy weaponized as leverage. And suddenly Noah's alleged guilt looks less like scandal and more like a carefully constructed smokescreen. Yet the damage is already done, because doubt, once seated, is impossible to fully uproot, and even those closest to Noah wrestle with conflicting emotions, torn between loyalty and fear, while the real father, emboldened by the chaos, begins making dangerous moves, pushing Sienna to stay silent, reminding her of promises made and threats implied, and when a confidential DNA test is quietly ordered, one meant to settle everything once and for all, it mysteriously disappears from the lab, confirming Victor's worst fears that someone is manipulating events from behind the scenes, someone powerful enough to erase evidence and bend systems to their will. And as the walls close in, Sienna finally cracks, confessing to a stunned ally that Noah is not the father, but admitting why she allowed his name to be dragged through the mud, because the real father's identity would ignite a war that Genoa City might not survive unscathed. A war involving old vendettas, corporate espionage, and a past crime long buried, and while this revelation should clear Noah's name, it instead culls him deeper into the danger zone, because now he knows too much, and those responsible cannot afford loose ends, setting the stage for a high-stakes showdown where truth, once revealed, may come at an unbearable cost, leaving viewers breathless as the question shifts from "Is Noah the father?" to "How far will someone go to keep the real name hidden?" And in true YNR fashion, the answer promises heartbreak, redemption, and a bombshell revelation that will change these lives forever. And just when it seems the nightmare cannot deepen any further, the fallout from Sienna's confession that Noah is not the father detonates an entirely new layer of chaos, because clearing Noah's name does not bring relief. It brings danger, the kind that creeps in quietly and strikes without warning, as Noah realizes that being falsely accused may have been the safest position he ever occupied. And now that he's been pulled behind the curtain, he's standing far too close to a truth someone is willing to kill to protect, while Sienna, trembling and guilt-ridden, begins to unravel under the weight of what she's done, haunted by Noah's ruined reputation and the knowledge that her silence has allowed an innocent man to suffer. Yet every time she gathers the courage to speak the real name aloud, she freezes, because the father of her unborn child is not just a man with power, but a man with reach, influence, and a history of making people disappear when they become inconvenient. And Genoa City, already buzzing with speculation, shifts into overdrive when word leaks that Noah has been officially cleared by Victor's private investigation, prompting public apologies that feel hollow and too late, while privately, Victor is more disturbed than ever, because exoneration without explanation is a luxury the Newmans cannot afford, and he knows all too well that when secrets are protected this fiercely, they usually mask something far uglier beneath, and as Noah attempts to reclaim his life, he finds doors still closing in his face, friendships strained beyond repair, and whispers following him like shadows, proving that in Genoa City, innocence rarely erases suspicion, it merely reshapes it. And Sharon, watching her son struggle, vows that this story will not end with Noah as collateral damage, pushing Sienna to trust her, to finally reveal the truth. But Sienna's fear is visceral, her hands shaking as she describes late-night meetings, veiled threats, and promises that turned into traps, revealing that the real father knows about the pregnancy and has made it brutally clear that exposure would trigger consequences far beyond scandal, consequences tied to an unresolved crime from years ago, one that was quietly buried but never truly forgotten. And as these fragments surface, pieces begin to align in chilling ways, drawing attention to a familiar yet unexpected figure whose movements around the time of conception suddenly appear far too convenient, far too calculated, sending Victor's investigators down a new path that leads to sealed records, offshore accounts, and a network of silent partners who all have one thing in common: loyalty bought through fear. And meanwhile, Sienna's pregnancy becomes increasingly fragile, her doctor warning that stress could put both her and the baby at risk, a warning that only intensifies the stakes because the child is no longer just a secret. It's leverage, a living reminder of a pact she desperately wants to escape but cannot, while the mysterious father grows bolder, arranging clandestine encounters and issuing ultimatums through intermediaries, reminding Sienna that Noah was a useful distraction and that if she truly cares about her unborn child's safety, she will continue to play her part. And Noah, sensing that Sienna is being controlled, refuses to step back, despite Sharon's fears and Victor's warnings, determined to protect her and expose whoever is hiding behind the curtain, even if it costs him everything. And this determination sets off alarms for the real father, who begins orchestrating subtle attacks, anonymous tips to the press, financial sabotage, carefully planted evidence designed to frame Noah once again, not as a lover this time, but as a threat, pushing him closer to the edge of the law. And as the pressure mounts, a stolen moment between Noah and Sienna becomes a turning point, when she finally admits that the father is someone deeply embedded in Genoa City's power structure, someone who smiles easily, speaks convincingly, and has been underestimated for far too long. Someone who once claimed to love her but now treats her like a liability, and though she still cannot bring herself to say his name, Noah recognizes the description instantly, his expression darkening as the implications crash over him, because exposing this man would not only shatter families and alliances, it would rewrite the balance of power in the city, and before they can act, tragedy strikes, when Sienna is involved in a mysterious accident, one ruled inconclusive, but riddled with inconsistencies, that lands her back in the hospital, unconscious and fighting for her life, sending shockwaves through Genoa City and forcing everyone to confront the terrifying reality that this story has crossed from scandal into something far more dangerous. And as Noah sits by her bedside, consumed by guilt and rage, Victor vows that whoever orchestrated this will be destroyed, regardless of cost, while Nikki fears that the truth, once revealed, may claim more victims before justice is served. And when Sienna finally awakens, fragile but resolute, she makes a decision that will change everything. She will name the father, publicly and unequivocally, consequences be damned, because living in fear is no longer an option. And as preparations begin for a revelation that promises to rock Genoa City to its core, the real father makes his most desperate move yet, attempting to flee, erase his trail, and silence those who know too much, unaware that Victor has already closed the net, setting the stage for a confrontation where lies will collapse, loyalties will be tested, and the truth about Sienna's unborn child will finally come into the light, proving once and for all that this was never just about paternity. It was about power, control, and the devastating cost of keeping the wrong secret for too long. And as the net tightens and the air in Genoa City grows thick with anticipation, the days following Sienna's awakening feel unreal, like the calm before a catastrophic storm, because although she is weak and monitored around the clock, there is a new steel in her eyes that wasn't there before, a resolve forged by fear, pain, and the near loss of her unborn child. And word spreads quickly, too quickly, that Sienna intends to speak, to finally end the nightmare by revealing the name everyone has been chasing in whispers and shadows. And that alone is enough to send tremors through the city's elite, because power in Genoa City has always depended on secrecy, on unspoken agreements and carefully curated lies, and Sienna's truth threatens to rip those foundations apart, while Noah becomes both her shield and her target, refusing to leave her side despite warnings from Victor, who senses that the closer Noah stands to this revelation, the greater the risk he faces. Yet Noah is past the point of self-preservation, driven by a fierce need to make things right, to reclaim not just his name but his sense of justice. And Sharon, watching her son walk willingly into danger, is torn between pride and terror, knowing that this fight is bigger than all of them. And as preparations are quietly made for Sienna's statement, a controlled environment, security tightened, legal counsel present, forces move just as quietly to stop it, with sudden power outages, hacked communications, and veiled threats delivered to hospital staff, all designed to isolate Sienna and delay the inevitable. But this time, the tactics fail, because Victor Newman has anticipated every move, leveraging his own network to counteract the sabotage, turning the hospital into a fortress and making it clear that whoever is behind this will not escape unscathed. And tension reaches a breaking point when the mysterious father, cornered and desperate, makes one final attempt to regain control, slipping past security to confront Sienna directly, a chilling encounter that unfolds in hushed tones and loaded silences, where he reminds her of everything she stands to lose, her safety, her child's future, even Noah's life. If she goes through with it, But instead of breaking her, the confrontation hardens her resolve, and when he leaves, confident that fear will once again keep her silent, he doesn't realize that he is already lost, because Sienna has seen through the illusion of his power, understanding at last that his influence depends entirely on her silence, and without it, he is just another man with too many sins and nowhere left to hide. And as the appointed hour arrives, Genoa City seems to hold its breath, with families gathering in living rooms, offices, and cafes, eyes glued to screens as news breaks that a major revelation is imminent, and Noah stands just out of frame, his presence a quiet reassurance as Sienna, pale but unflinching, begins to speak, her voice trembling at first, but growing stronger with every word, recounting how she met the father, how charm masked manipulation, how promises of protection turned into threats, and as she names him, clearly, unmistakably, the reaction is instant and explosive, shock rippling through the audience as gasps echo both on screen and off, because the man she names is someone no one ever suspected publicly. Someone woven deeply into Genoa City's power structure, trusted, respected, and until now untouchable. And within moments, the fallout begins, with phones ringing nonstop, alliances collapsing, and legal teams scrambling to contain damage that cannot be contained, while the named father watches his world implode in real time, his carefully crafted image crumbling under the weight of truth, and attempts to deny the accusation only make things worse, as evidence Victor's team has been quietly assembling floods in, corroborating Sienna's story with financial records, surveillance footage, and witness testimony that paints a damning picture. And as law enforcement moves in, the man who once believed himself invincible realizes too late that his greatest mistake was underestimating the woman he tried to silence. And for Noah, the revelation is both vindication and heartbreak, because while his name is finally cleared beyond doubt, the cost has been devastating, leaving scars that won't fade easily. And in the days that follow, Genoa City reels from the aftershocks, with businesses collapsing, families fractured, and long-buried secrets resurfacing as people begin to question how much they truly knew about those closest to them, while Sienna, recovering slowly, faces a future that is still uncertain but finally her own, determined to raise her child free from fear and lies. And though danger hasn't vanished entirely, the power balance has shifted, proving that even in a city built on deception, truth still has the power to destroy empires. And as Noah looks ahead, aware that redemption doesn't come neatly packaged and that some wounds will always ache, he also understands that this ordeal has changed him, forging a strength he didn't know he possessed. And as the final credits would roll on this chapter of the saga, one truth lingers above all others. The question of Sienna's unborn child was never just about who the father was, but about who was willing to stand up when the truth threatened everything. And in Genoa City, that choice has changed the game forever.